Experiments over experiences. Experiments over experiences. What do I mean by that? What's the difference between an experiment and an experience? Let's say you're about to go and have an experience of a difficult meeting, a difficult presentation. When we think of it as an experience, as a part of our life, it carries more weight. We have to bring our personality to that experience, to the meeting. We have to make it work, we have to make it happen. This experience means a lot in my life at the moment. So it becomes a very serious kind of a thing. It becomes something that you own in a way, that once you're done with the experience, will become a part of your story, a part of your life. This experiences, this experience is adding to your portfolio of experiences. So when we consider it as an experience, it's a more serious thing, it's a more committed thing, it's a more it's attached to our identities strongly. That's what I would define as an experience. If I go into a difficult presentation or a difficult meeting or even on a date, and if I consider it that this is going to be an experience which I have to win, I start taking it very, very seriously. On the other hand, experiments. Remember, I said in the beginning, experiments over experiences. If I consider this difficult presentation or this date as an experiment, all of a sudden, it doesn't feel very committed, it doesn't feel very heavy and serious. It feels like, oh, this is just an experiment. Let's see what happens. Because when it's an experiment, we're not really committed towards excelling in it or gaining something from it or adding it as part of our identity. It's an experiment. Just by the nature of the word, we don't have a conclusion. We don't have the pressure of arriving at a certain conclusion. The conclusion can go either ways. That's why it's an experiment. That's why it feels much, much lighter than an experience. An experience, much more committed, much more identifiable with our identity. Experience, oh, I'll just do this experiment. I'll just go on a date with this person. See what happens. Let's see what happens. That thought comes in. Let's see what happens. Which means we are much more relaxed going into this experiment. We are much more detached from our identity when we go into an experiment. Because my personality, my identity does not depend on this experiment, is not defined by this experiment. It's just an experiment. It's a passing thing. So what happens when I switch to experiment mode? I go into this meeting, I have no pressure. I'm free to talk. I'm free to express my thoughts, opinions, my research, my reports, whatever it is that I want to share in this meeting. It's an experiment. Let me use a much stronger voice to see how the meeting goes. Let me use a mild, friendly, humor, laughing, light-hearted approach when I go to this meeting and I just start making people laugh. That's an experiment for this meeting. Maybe that works for me. Maybe it might not work for me. But I'm not going to let the output of this experiment define my own identity. Yeah, there was this one time I went into this meeting and I tried to make people laugh. It worked, it didn't work, whatever. Let's see how it goes. And even when we look back at an experiment like this, we look back at it like, yeah, I tried to do this. and this is how it went. That's all we define it by. We don't attach it to our identity. Whew, start getting really hot. This is an experiment actually. As you can see, my background is completely different. I'm outdoors. I'm traveling right now. And I wanted to keep the streak of the podcast, these episodes coming. And this is definitely not my comfort zone. I'm not in my home studio. I'm in some Airbnb here. And I'm like, yeah, let's see what happens if I go like sit in the balcony and just start speaking about this thought that I had, experiments over experiences. And so I'm sitting here and wow, it started getting really hot. This experiment I think is going pretty good, except for the sun. I wish the sun would just fuck off. But came into this video with no expectations. This thought came in when I was having a discussion with a group of people wherein everybody was trying to be like, man, I'm trying to do this thing and I'm trying to do that thing, and it's really just putting a lot of pressure on me. And I start getting nervous. I start going around in circles. I start overthinking. And I'm like, so how can we beat that? How can we lessen the pressure of whatever you're about to go through? It's like, what if you just looked at it like an experiment? You're going into whatever experience, but thinking of it in a non-committal way. It's an experiment. Let's see how it goes. Let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens. No pressure. All the pressure suddenly just lifted off. No pressure. And the guy immediately was like, man, I think you nailed it. Just thinking about it as an experiment already shifts my mindset in a way that I can just kind of approach it and not be afraid of failure. Not being afraid of failure, if you haven't heard this before, is literally the key to success. If you're afraid of failure, you're going to stop yourself from attempting so many things. But the moment you redefine and make it into an experiment and make it into an experience where you're not afraid of failure. It's still an experience, but it's an experiment. You're not afraid of failure. The moment you take the pressure off, you're a different person. You go in, you're not nervous, your voice is not shaking, your thoughts are more fluid, more clear, you're more expressive, you can laugh. You don't need to stiffen up and your body language is not weird. You can just relax. Your shoulders are low. Your voice is normal. You're not trembling. You're not shivering. You're not, fidgeting with whatever. Like if you have a pen and you just start doing this or doing this with your hands or whatever. All of that is gone because it's an experiment. I'm approaching it with an open mind, without a fear of failure. And that's why experiments over experiences. I forget to do that sometimes, half the time, whenever I go to an important meeting or whatever. I'm like, oh shit, like this, I need this project, I want to win this meeting, presentation, the client or whatever. I'm like, and it just creates this pressure. I have to constantly remind myself, like, oh, no matter what I do, if I don't relax, if I don't give them my true self, my confident self, it's not going to work. And if I'm confident and not afraid of failure, I've done my best, and the result is up to them. Because they will not just, they won't look at my face and grant me a project. I have to come across nice, relaxed, and confident. So considering it an experiment really takes the pressure off, really takes the sweat off, and you can just approach this client just the way you are, your relaxed, confident self. And now with the experiment. Let's see where it goes. That's my episode for today.